Hey there, it's John from Tiny, and I'm joined by Frederick Danielson, the product manager for Tiny MCE. And today we're going to talk about the 4 elements to email rich text editing success. So this content is going to be really useful for you if you're building your own email builder or if you're building a web-based email client. It's helpful if you're creating something from scratch or if you have an existing project that you want to add rich text editing capabilities to or upgrade the rich text editing capabilities on. So before we get into it, TinyMCE is used by many email type platforms such as HubSpot, Marketo, Topple.io, Bee, and many others. And we've taken a look at how these email platforms are using TinyMCE to come up with the 4 key elements for you to succeed with adding rich text editing to your project. Before we get into each key element, I'm going to hand it over to Frederick to talk about each of the personas that you'll be dealing with when adding rich text editing to your email platform. Over to you, Frederick.
All right. So without any particular priority, the first persona we're going to talk about is the writers. As a writer, you want to be both productive and creative in being able to convey the message to the audience in the best way possible. This means having a complete tool belt with formats like headings, bold, italic, styles like text colors, insert links, lists, images, buttons, emojis, and all other tools a professional email marketer uses to express a message in the way their vision requires. The second persona is the designers. A designer's responsibility is to make sure the visual aspect of the email is top-notch. Everything from looking good in all email clients from desktop to mobile, to being readable on brand and providing the writers with the layout and style options that they need to get the message through. Then we got the email admins. These might be, the marketing and automation administrators who manages and follow up campaigns, but do not necessarily design templates or write individual emails. These people care a lot about the performance and metrics, open rates, click-through rates, A/B testing, compliance with spam filters and spam laws, and that kind of stuff. Lastly, we got the developers, which must be you if you are watching this video. You are the one tying everything together, all the requirements from the stakeholders into a functional email builder. You would care a lot about the user experience of the email builder and the quality of the HTML output from the rich text editor you choose to make sure it's compatible with all the gazillion email clients that are out there. All right, let's look at a first email best practice. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Frederick. So yeah, the first one that we have here is what you see is what you actually get. So no, that's not a typo. This is really important for email. With email, there's no undo button, and your users may not always be paying attention to detail or using a preview button. So although it's great to include a preview functionality, you really want to try and ensure that the user is going to see when they're developing the email something as close as possible to the end product. So we'll take a look at an example for this one. We're looking at Topple, which is an email builder that uses TinyMCE. And if you take a look at their builder, you don't really need a preview. It just looks a lot like what the email will actually look like. And one of the really neat features here is you can actually build in mobile mode without having to preview in mobile. So we really like this as an example of a best practice for doing an email builder. They've got their usual drag and drop functionality, and within each rich text editing component, they have TinyMCE as a floating inline toolbar here that follows the user around as they move through the email. And when we're talking about WYSIWY, the next thing you want to think about are the fonts, styles. As you probably know, when you're building email, there's a lot of restrictions around what fonts and styles and HTML you can use because of all the different email clients. So just make sure when you're adding the toolbars and the various styling options to your rich text editing component that you only allow users to create what they will actually be able to render in the email client. So best practice with email is lock it down pretty tightly, keep the styles applied to only certain elements, and just make sure that you're not sort of giving the users a false promise of what they can actually create versus what will actually be rendered in the email client. And like I said before, desktop and mobile mode is critical, whether it's in preview or while you're building, to make sure that your writers and your designers understand and can see and feel how it's going to look on different device types. Okay, over to you, Frederick, for number 2.
Yes, generate clean HTML. If you're a developer, you're going to care a lot about this. Clean HTML is the foundation for a good spam filter pass-throughs and compatibility with all the email clients out there. Email is kind of a beast in its own, you know. Modern web browsers are very forgiving and flexible at dealing with what gets thrown at them. Email is not equally friendly. There are so many different email clients out there, some with very old and esoteric HTML and rendering engines, and you have different operating systems and devices. So you have to be very mindful about the HTML that you're using in your emails. We're not going to go through all those restrictions in this video, but it's definitely worth looking those up. You can just Google email HTML best practices, and you'll get a ton of good blog posts and videos to look through to get you started. That being said, what you should be looking at when choosing a rich text editor tool for your email builder is that it can control the output of the HTML in a way that is compliant with these email best practices. For example, content filtering, being able to allow and restrict certain HTML tags and attributes, inline the CSS, etc. Your rich text editor has to give you, if you're the developer, the ability to very precisely control the HTML being created and submitted. The final point is small, but an important one. It's being able to make non-editable read-only mail merge tags, or tokens as they are sometimes called. You know, these placeholders wrapped in curly brackets that says first .name or author .signature, which is later replaced with actual data when sending the email. As John was saying, there is no going back fixing an email. Once it's sent, it's out of your hands. So if you don't want writers to accidentally change this and send out something like hello first.nam or something else embarrassing like that, we're all seeing that, so make them non-editable. Over to you, John, to talk about third email best practice.
Awesome. Thanks, Frederick. So the third one is build in quality control. So as I mentioned earlier, it's all about giving your users and your content creators the ability to see changes as they'll be reflected in the email. And part of that includes not letting them do things that they shouldn't do at the very beginning so that your email administrator doesn't have to go back and chase after them or make changes to the work later on down the road. This both makes for a better and more predictable sort of user experience for the content creators, and it cuts down on rework and inefficiencies in your email creation process for you or your clients that are using the software. So as Frederick mentioned, the email is no good if it doesn't make it through spam filters, comply with the legislations, and properly render within the email client. One of the things that we always recommend is if you're building especially an email marketing tool, start thinking about different types of ways to prevent these issues early on. So for example, with things like spam testing, there's free tools that either you can connect to via an API, or you can empower your users at the very least to use these tools to check their mail spam score. Mail Tester is a great tool. It's been around for a long time, and it does provide that great first level of testing. And then if you are looking for more advanced sort of functionality to empower your users or start automating things, there are other paid tools that offer some very, very advanced functionality, like Litmus is one of them, and there's many others. And what they can do is they can do email previews, the same spam type of functionality, all in an automated fashion. So it's definitely worth checking those out to make sure that you get the best ROI on your email investment. Now, there's other things that you can do within the rich text editor that can definitely cut down on some of these errors as well. So for example, you could check for broken links, missing alt text, or spelling. So with TinyMCE, we have some premium plugins that are included in the email starter config that I'll talk about at the end of this video. But there's things like spell checker that can help your users identify these issues early on. You can add custom dictionaries, that kind of stuff. And there's also ways to check for broken links before the email gets sent out, because the last thing you want to do, as Frederick mentioned, is send out an email with a broken link or a spelling mistake. So let me just try this, put in a fake URL here. And tools like TinyMCE will automatically alert your users and highlight where there's broken links so that either it doesn't get sent out or your QC people can be more efficient later on down the production chain. Now, if you wanted to take this to the next level, you could also plug into some of these plugins with APIs to not even let your users save an email if there's a broken link, spelling mistake, or similar. Okay, and on to our last point, which seems like a no-brainer, but it's make the editing process seamless. So you want to do this with any app that you're building. And as an app developer or a product manager, you know this already. But we think it's really important to drive this point home. So you want to make sure that your rich text editing experience fits within your overall email platform. One app that does a really good job at this is HubSpot, which also uses TinyMCE. So HubSpot has their own drag and drop editor here with a toolbar on the right that lets you add components. And when you focus in on a rich text editing component, instead of having the inline menu, they have a menu that stays at the top there. And it contains all of the editing features that their users would expect. It's highly integrated within their app, and they've got a custom look and feel, and the dialog boxes even fit within their app and contain their own custom functionality. With various rich text editors, there's different levels of customizability. If you're looking to do a deeply embedded rich text editing experience in your email platform like HubSpot, just make sure that the rich text editor has ways to plug into it and customize it with things like APIs. Now, the other thing you want to think about is the copy and paste experience. So if you step back and look at the email production workflow that Frederick was touching on at the very beginning of the video, there's many different people involved in the process, and there's even more involved than what we saw on that persona screen. There's reviewers, and there's everyone wants to add feedback along the way, especially in a very large organization. So what can happen is you can have someone create an email draft in Google Docs, they'll send it around, then someone will copy it into Word, and you've got comments, and you have all this content. And one thing that your email creators wanted the ability to do is to easily copy and paste that into the editor. The copy and paste experience is not created equal across rich text editors, and many of them don't have the ability to preserve formatting when copying over from productivity suites. So if that is important to you, just double check what's available with the rich text editor that you're choosing. And then lastly, media management. Almost all emails, especially marketing emails, have images in them. So something to consider is, how will my users be adding images and content to these emails? Will it be uploaded to a CDN? Will my app handle the media management function? Will I build a custom function? Will I use a third-party function? Or is there a media management plugin that's maybe available with the rich text editor that I'm choosing? So these are all things to think about to make the editing process easier and more seamless for your users, and ultimately deliver a better experience. Okay, so quick recap of the 4 key elements. What you see is what you actually get. Generate clean HTML, build in quality control, and make editing seamless. Before I wrap up, I'll talk about the email starter config. So our team's been working hard at creating a starter config specifically for anyone looking to add email rich text editing capabilities to their app. You can head over to the link in the description, try it out, and see what works for you. It's got all the features that you might want if you're adding email to your app. Hopefully it inspires you to see what's possible with editing within your email app. Okay, that's it for today. If you want more resources on rich text editing with email, check out the links in the description, head over to our blog, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. Good luck.